The economic circumstances are those that we need to come to terms with. I've given you an example of privatization. It's not as bad as people make it look. It's whether we do it correctly in accordance with the law, so that the people of Kenya can benefit. Let's look at somebody saying KICC is a national heritage. Absolutely, it is true. It is a national heritage. But in the last few weeks, in the build-up to the COP25 summit, the government of Kenya has had to spend money to rehabilitate it. Not little money, a lot of money. And they did only part of it. Now, to give you an example, KICC is a state corporation. Suppose through the teachers' circle, the teachers' circle became a partner under a model that can be discussed and looked at, became a partner in the KICC. And the government, instead of having 100% of KICC as a management company of KICC, cedes a certain percentage to the teacher circle. And jointly with the teacher circle, you get somebody who can manage it commercially and make it have a proper turnover. Tell me, will that have stopped KICC from being a national heritage? Will it have stopped it? It will remain a national heritage in Kenya, exactly where it is. So there's a lot of learning to be done, because people are misinterpreting a lot of things, and in the process they are delaying the process of us getting out of difficult situations. So, walimu, I have listened to the statements made by your leadership, and we shall follow up very, very carefully. We shall also continue to engage Parliament effectively, because Parliament, again, according to our Constitution, is supposed to guide us when it comes to resource allocation. We need to enlist them, we need to get their buy-in, we need to get their support, and other stakeholders. And in due course, what appears like a long dark night shall become a long bright day, I can assure you. I can assure you. We want to look at, through, for instance, the diaspora docket that falls on Kenya, that I hold. We must also look for avenues to export human labor, skilled human labor. We must negotiate internationally agreements that can allow or can facilitate you as teachers to go and seek your livelihood, whether it is in Germany, whether it is in other countries, Botswana, whether it is in the US. We must, through the negotiations, also broaden the scope to allow you to have opportunities that we may not be readily available here, or perhaps even greener opportunities in those areas. So these are some of the things that we want to pursue. These are some of the things we are engaging in when we are talking about economic diplomacy, because we want to find opportunities for the people of Kenya, the people you train, very skilled people that you are producing for this country. We must find outlets for them, whether it is here or whether it is externally. And we can only do this with good partnership. We want to assure you, and I personally want to assure you, that I will be an advocate for your cause in government, so that we can find a constructive way of emerging out of these challenges. I do not want us to go back all the time to say, this is the problem, that is who. We must move away from the blame game. But I've acknowledged that where we are there as a nation. Right now, it's not a question of who put the signature to what document. We are bound by those commitments. Now it is time to work collectively to get out of those commitments. We are not about to run away from this particular challenge. We will systematically work with you and other stakeholders in our country so that we can attain a more favorable position going forward. I say this because we are facing challenges. And I was one of the most honest political speakers in the build-up to the election and where we are. In fact, if some of you were following my conversations carefully, from way back as 2015, I kept on sounding the warning bell that the country is on a dangerous borrowing spree, and it is going to catch up with us, and it will cause a lot of havoc in our ability to deliver good services to the people of Kenya. I repeatedly said this. Ladies and gentlemen, and my friends who are listening, we are now in that situation. Commitments were made, and because they are now sovereign commitments, because a government exists in perpetuity, once you make those commitments, they will have to be honored, irrespective of who now made those commitments. So our position now as government is to acknowledge that we have a challenge, not to lament anymore, but to acknowledge that we have a challenge, and then we work our way out of that challenge going forward. Now, I want to talk to you as teachers, as the luminaries in our society, as the people who will help get the citizenry of this country digest this challenge appropriately. When you look at the consolidated fund, government budget, consolidated fund, one of the first charges, apart from the salaries and so forth, one of the first charges on the consolidated fund is to make sure that you're paying your sovereign and public debt. It's a constitutional requirement. We cannot run away from it. Whether you are standing on this side of this auditorium or you're on that side of this auditorium, the reality is that the Constitution is very clear that the first charge on the consolidated fund is partly to settle public debt. So we are in that challenge, you and I. You may not have signed up to it. Neither did I sign up to it. But it is now our commitment. We have to resolve it. So it will take us a bit of time, because defaulting is not an option. It will take us a bit of time, and that is why in my remarks I said we are likely to see a difficult 2 to 3 years as a nation before we start seeing reprieve. But there is hope. There is hope at the end of the tunnel. Now, I want to bring out this because when you are in a difficult situation, you are sometimes forced to make extremely painful and difficult decisions. Those of us who are in the driving seat, including the President of this Republic, is in that situation where he has to be the harbinger of some of these tough decisions that have to be made. We want to enlist you to help in the communication of this. Let me give you an example. Recently, the government said that it is the intention of government to start looking at how to accelerate something like privatization. And then there's a hula baloo across the country. Oh, the government of Kenya wants to dispose of their assets. What we should be saying is, please manage the privatization properly, transparently, openly, and in accordance with the law. That is what we should be talking about, not about the intention. The other day, maybe some of you may have seen it. Some of you have flown to London many times. You know of Heathrow Airport, isn't it? It's the biggest airport there, isn't it? Do you know that the Saudi Investment Fund from Saudi Arabia has bought 12% stake in Heathrow Airport? 12% of Heathrow Airport has been bought by the Saudi fund, which is a private entity belonging to the Saudi government. But I want to ask you, ladies and gentlemen, has Heathrow Airport been uprooted from London and taken to Saudi Arabia? Or is it still a physical asset, infrastructure in the United Kingdom? It is still there. But why are they doing that? They are doing that because they have no capacity to raise all that money for rejuvenation of that expansion of that airport. The only other way is to continuously tax the citizens. So we must also think out of the box as Kenyans and figure out, with all these challenges that we are facing, because government is not supposed to be doing business per se. Government is supposed to be looking after its citizens, providing security and ensuring that the public service is motivated and properly paid, including the interns that are here. So if we have 355 public entities or parastatals and they are loss-making, they are in debt, and the government is being forced to pay that debt. Instead of paying the debt, if we can get them away from that misery, and we stop sending money to pay their debt, would that money now be available to increase the salary to the interns? These are the hard decisions we have to make. Because a government can only raise its money from basically two sources. Either you go into debt or you tax. That is where you get money. It's either debt or tax. Recently, we have seen taxing and levies has reached its limit. It's very painful. So as a government, as a nation, we must now think away from continuously taxing the people of Kenya to start looking at what are the other areas that we can make a saving, what are the other areas we can raise resources, inject money into the system so that we can release resources to increase and to ease the burden that the teachers of this country are facing. When I was when we look at the contributions that we are talking about to some of the entities, let me just talk about NHIF or NSSF. If you are an actuarist, these people who understand mathematics very well and are able to deal with it, projecting so many years, these actuaries, if you are to tell them that the contributions that we have been making over the years, how can somebody be in the civil service, work for 30 years, and his takeaway home is only 70,000 shillings? I mean, where is the logic? Where is the commensurate return for his years of service? It doesn't exist. So this is the debate. And as I said when I started, I'm appealing to the luminaries of this nation. Let us guide our citizens to have informed debates on how we can recover the economy of this country. It is not about being emotional. It is about collectively coming up with the right ideas and then moving forward. Irrespective of your political persuasion, irrespective of your gender, let us work together, and I can tell you, Kenya can be a very, very important economic hub, and that is what we intend to make it. The human resource capacity of Kenya is really being admired. But we must stop comparing ourselves to certain areas. We must now start aiming for the best. So, walimu, I have listened to the statements made by your leadership, and we shall follow up very, very carefully. We shall also continue to engage Parliament effectively, because Parliament, again, according to our Constitution, is supposed to guide us when it comes to resource allocation. We need to enlist them. We need to get their buy-in, we need to get their support, and other stakeholders. And in due course, what appears like a long dark night shall become a long bright day, I can assure you. I can assure you. When I was when we look at the contributions that we are talking about to some of the entities, let me just talk about NHIF or NSSF. If you are an actuarist, these people who understand mathematics very well and are able to deal with it, projecting so many years. These actuaries, if you are to tell them that the contributions that we have been making over the years, how can somebody be in the civil service, work for 30 years, and his takeaway home is only 70,000 shillings? I mean, where is the logic? Where is the commensurate return for his years of service? It doesn't exist. So this is the debate. And as I said when I started, I'm appealing to the luminaries of this nation. Let us guide our citizens to have informed debates on how we can recover the economy of this country. It is not about being emotional. It is about collectively coming up with the right ideas and then moving forward. Irrespective of your political persuasion, irrespective of your gender, let us work together, and I can tell you, Kenya can be a very, very important economic hub, and that is what we intend to make it. The human resource capacity of Kenya is really being admired. But we must stop comparing ourselves to certain areas. We must now start aiming for the best.